Okay guys, I am back with my review of Paranormal Activity 3. I expected to have this up earlier today, but I'm in the process of moving and I had to set up the internet and it took me like 2 hours to get my new internet set up and it was just a huge pain. But I finally got it set up so I was just now able to watch the movie and now I can upload the review of it. Paranormal Activity 3 I thought was a pretty good movie. It tries to do some unique stuff in the series, having it set in the 1988. Um, it just came out last year, so if you haven't seen it, this review does contain spoilers, but it was a pretty good movie, and let's just get right into it. So the movie opens up, and you see Christy and Dan from the second movie, and they're painting the baby's room. It's like 2005. Katie from the first movie comes over, and she sees the room, and she's talking to Christy, and she says that she has a lot of stuff from their grandmother, like a box of VHS tapes and some other crap, and she was wondering if she can store it in their basement. So then it cuts to 2006, and it's in the second movie again, where it shows the burglary that started the second movie, and the only thing missing was the box of VHS tapes. Although it says in the second movie the ghost or the burglars also took a necklace that Katie had given Christy. But in this movie they don't mention that. They just say that the box of VHS tapes was stolen. Then we see one of the tapes. I guess the burglar turned it into the police or something. I don't know. But we see one of the tapes and it starts and it's from 1988 in Santa Rosa, California, and it's a kid's birthday party. And it's a home movie of Christy and Katie as children, and their mother Julie and her boyfriend Dennis. And we see that Katie's, celebrating her birthday, and Christy is over in the corner talking to an invisible person. So it starts off with the paranormal stuff right away. For the first part of the movie, they show some home video footage. Uh, Dennis is a wedding photographer, and he videotapes weddings and takes pictures and stuff. So he's already got like a bunch of cameras. He's in the basement. He hears a noise. He's home alone, and he goes upstairs and he finds a toy teddy bear playing on its own. It has some kind of music, audio thing in its back, and it's gone off on its own. I do have to say that for 1988, these cameras are amazing. These cameras are better than the cameras in the first movie, which was like 2006 it took place, and that's almost 20 years later. Man, for 1988, these cameras are awesome. So, it's late at night, and Dennis and Julie are kind of fooling around, and then an earthquake happens. And in the morning, they're reviewing the footage, and Dennis notices that during the earthquake, um, some dirt and dust falls down from the ceiling, and it lands on something, but there's nothing there. But it clearly stops in midair, and then all of a sudden it just falls. So he brings his friend Randy over, and he shows him the footage, and he instantly believes it. He's like, "Man, that's weird." So Dennis decides he's gonna set up some more cameras around the house. Night one, Christy gets up and starts talking to someone again in the middle of the night. The next day, Dennis asks her about it, and she says it's Toby, her friend. He asks her what he looks like. She says he's big, he's tall, and he's older than Grandma. Julie says it's just a phase. Dennis and Randy are all about the ghost thing. They're setting up cameras, and she kind of pranks them and acts like she's making noise, but it turns out she's just hiding in the closet with a Halloween mask on. Um, the kids decide they're going to camp outside. So the kids are sleeping in a tent outside, and night five, Dennis and Julie hear noises in the house, like someone's walking around the house. But the kids, they go to check on them, and they see that they're still sleeping outside in the tent. They never came in the house. So they get really creeped out, and they go and they bring the kids back inside. The next day, we see Julie's mother come over, Christy and Katie's grandmother, And she asks Julie if she wants to have more children, if she wants to have kids with Dennis. And she says that she thinks she's done having kids, and the grandmother's like, but you always wanted a son. I guess trying to convince her to have a son. Randy comes over and he tells the kids about Bloody Mary, the old game where you stare in the mirror. And Dennis and Randy rig a fan to hold a camera and move back and forth so he can cover the living room and the kitchen, and he can cover more rooms of the house. So he sets that up, and then it slowly pans back to the living room, back to the kitchen, and he can see more of the house this way. Night 8, Christy, she runs around the house playing by herself, well, yeah, she appears to be by herself, but she's playing around the house with Toby. Katie wakes up and tells her to go back to bed. Randy gets Dennis some books on demons, and night 10, a chandelier breaks in the house. So it's slowly building, slowly finding out more and more about what exactly is going on at this point in the movie. Katie starts to pick on Christy and tells her she's a baby, only babies have imaginary friends. Christy tells her he's not imaginary, he's real, and he's in this cubbyhole in their room. There's like this small little cubbyhole that's like a door, and it opens and it goes into like this little space. Pretty creepy, actually. And she tells Katie that Toby is in there. So Christy warns her not to go in, but Katie goes in there anyways, and of course the door slams, locking her in, and she blames it on Christy, but since we can see the videotapes, we see that Christy did nothing. And she tells her it was Toby, but nobody believes her. Then they get a babysitter. Dennis and Julie go out, and the babysitter's playing around with the kids. She puts a sheet on and acts like she's a ghost. Then she goes downstairs to the kitchen, and through the panning, it cuts to the living room, back to the kitchen. Living room, kitchen. At one point, it cuts to the kitchen, and we see a ghost that looks like a small child under the sheet. So we just see a sheet that looks like a child is under it in the kitchen behind the babysitter. And then it just drops to the ground. She picks the sheet up, and she goes upstairs to check on the girls, who were asleep, of course. And then she hears something in the cubbyhole, and she gets closer, and then something just blows her backwards. So she gets scared and goes downstairs. Dennis and Julie come home. She doesn't mention any of this to them, and she just kind of leaves. One thing I thought was weird was if Toby was under the sheet and it looked like, I don't know, maybe a child's height, I thought Christy said that Toby was big and tall. But this was not big and tall. This was like a kid under this thing. So that part was kind of strange to me. Another thing I thought was strange was in the very first movie, Katie says that whatever has haunted them since they were kids, Christy could see it, but it always bothered Katie. It would always be over her bed. So it kind of seems like Christy's the one talking to this thing all the time. Although I guess it does kind of hurt Katie more in this movie. And it could also be that Christy gets possessed and then they remove it from her in the second movie. I don't know. You know, when I watch these movies in theaters, I didn't remember any of this, but now that I'm doing like reviews of them and taking the notes, I remember, I notice all this different stuff and like this huge storyline that spans all three movies, and it's pretty crazy because I didn't know about any of this. I kind of knew bits and pieces of it, but man, doing these reviews, I find out all this other stuff. But anyways, night 13, Christy comes into Dennis and Julie's room, and she just stares at him as time passes on the clock. She tells Toby she doesn't want to talk to him anymore. Dennis checks out the cubby hole, and he sees some weird drawings inside it. Christy gets a fever, so Randy comes over to watch Katie while they take her to the hospital. And Katie wants to play Bloody Mary. So they play it, and Randy gets something, scratches him, and he cuts the lights on. And he's freaked out, but he's trying to stay strong for the kid because Katie's really scared. And he's like, oh, it's nothing. I'm fine. Everything's okay. And then they go and something tries to get into the bathroom. So that really scares them both. And it stops and he calms down. And then when he goes to open the door, we see all the toys and furniture in the room just get blown over. This movie had a lot of, effects like that, just invisible things moving. It was pretty cool. So Dennis gets home and Randy's freaked out, of course, and he says he wants to quit doing this. This isn't a game. This thing is dangerous. It can hurt you. And Dennis tells him to calm down, but Randy he wants his stuff and he wants to leave. And he tells him that he needs to tell Julie what's going on and to watch the tape of what happened to him. So Dennis tries to tell Julie. He shows her a picture he found where it's a group of witches, and one of the women is wearing a necklace with the same symbol as the symbol he found in the cubbyhole. And apparently the witches take the girls around the age of where they can get pregnant and they sell their souls or something like that. Meanwhile, upstairs, Katie is playing with Christy and she runs into Toby, and Toby just picks Katie up by her hair. This was crazy looking. This part was really awesome. And it really stood out for me in this movie. Night 14, everything in the little girls' rooms, starts to move, and Katie gets pulled into the cubbyhole, and she's screaming, and Christy gets up and says, "Stop, just let her go, I'll do it." So obviously, Toby wanted something. Christy didn't want to do it, but he started to attack Katie to try and get her to do it, and she gave in. So Christy agrees to his demands, I guess. And the next day, Christy's trying to convince Julie to take them to Grandma's house. And Julie says, "We're not going to Grandma's house. There's no ghost. Everything is fine." And when Christy goes back upstairs, she goes in the kitchen, and everything in the kitchen is gone. And then all of a sudden, everything falls from the ceiling. The dinner table, the chairs, everything. This was badass. So, of course, Julie says, "Dennis, we're getting the hell out of here." So they go to Grandma's house, and Christy plays dress up with some of these old clothes, and they say, "Who are you marrying?" And she says, "Toby." And Julie says, "Let's stop talking about him." So Dennis sets up some cameras in the bedroom at Grandma's house. Late at night, they hear some cars pull up. It's around 1:30 in the morning. He wakes up Julie. She says it's just her mom. She always stays up late. But then she starts hearing these really loud noises. So she says, "I'm going to go tell her to be quiet before she wakes up the girls." So Dennis is waiting for her, and she's gone for a while. And then we see Grandma behind Dennis in the doorway. And then she disappears. When he moves in front of the camera, when he moves away, she's gone. So he leaves and he goes to check on the girls, but they're not in their bed. He can't find Julie. He can't find anyone. He goes to the dining room, and one of the paintings is taken down, and behind it is the symbol he saw in the cubbyhole, he saw in the witches. He sees another painting taken down with a pentagram behind it. So he starts to get really freaked out. And then he walks into a room, and there's a coven of witches in there. And all these witches just stare at him and walk slowly towards him. He runs. He tries to lock them out. He finds Julie at the top of the stairs, but she's kind of being suspended in midair, like something's holding her. And she looks like she's just been beat up. And he runs up to her, and she gets thrown at him. They both fall down the stairs. I guess Julie's dead at this point. He finds Christy, and they hide in a closet. Toby is searching the house looking for him. He sees Katie, and he tells Christy to wait here, and he goes to check on Katie, and when he touches her, she turns around, and I guess she's possessed because she makes the devil face that Katie made in the first movie, and she yells at him, and he flies backwards. He gets up, or he doesn't get up, he crawls and tries to get to his feet, but Grandma appears in front of him, and then Toby slams him to the ground and then just breaks his back. He pulls his neck up and his legs back and just bends him like a pretzel. and it just kills Dennis. Grandma takes Katie and Christy upstairs and says, "Let's get ready," and then the tape ends. So that was Paranormal Activity 3. I thought this was a pretty cool movie. They did some good stuff. They did the kitchen scene, they did the hair pulling scene. It seemed like Toby was stronger in this movie or something. I don't know what it was, but it was pretty good. The cameras looked good. I thought there was just a few things I guess I noticed because I watched all three of these in order, close together recently, and there's a scene where Katie says to Christy, in I think the second movie, when Christy's freaked out, she says, "Don't start talking about it or it'll get worse and you'll end up like Mom." So they were old enough to remember that their mother wasn't crazy. Their mother didn't talk about it. As soon as she acknowledged it happening, she was killed. The only thing I can think of is they were brainwashed by their grandma. They also mentioned something about their first house burning. I suppose that could have happened before the events of this movie. I don't know. I just had some questions about that, but it's nothing really major or important. The movies are good for what they are. Paranormal Activity 4 should be out at October 19th, I believe, of this year. So the movies make a shitload of money. They're going to keep making them as long as they make all this money. And I think Paranormal Activity is the new one movie a year, every year for Halloween Saw series. So I think that's the new thing, and they're going to keep pumping these things out, and I hope the quality remains steady and good, because the first three are pretty good movies. I still think the first one's the scariest and the best, but 2 and 3 are not bad. They're pretty scary horror movies, so I enjoyed them, and I hope you guys enjoyed this review, and subscribe to my channel, like the videos, leave me some comments, and I will be back with my review for TNA Impact tomorrow night and SmackDown on Friday, but I'm also going to go see Ghost Rider on Friday, and I will have a movie review up for the new Ghost Rider movie Friday afternoon. So thanks for listening. Bye.